This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 6th of February 2020, and I am DM.
I'm Tom.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Standard, Mois political stars.
Yeah.
In the Daily Nation, Power Games in plans for Mois funeral. And in the Star, Jubilee tensions spill over to Mois funeral planning.
Yes.
I think let's start with what could be an intriguing funeral committee.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know that in the Star,
Yeah.
they say that there's tension over the planning of Mois' funeral, MZEE.
Yeah.
And they highlight three things. One, that after the events of the death, Ruto cut a very isolated figure.
Yes.
He gave his speech in the presence of really no high-level
MPs and MCAs.
Yes.
Yes.
No high-level
Actually, it was just
government people.
Just cameras.
Just cameras, right? And that Interior Minister Fred Matiang'i is the one who has taken over and is holding brief for the president and how to move forward with funeral planning.
Absolutely.
And that he's all alone.
and I'm imagining that as the funeral plans go on and the funeral day itself arrives, we'll see a lot of perhaps what people see as politics of persecution. Which could be counterproductive. You see, Ruto is he's increasingly looking at like a victim and a mistreated man, or a mistreated deputy president.
Yes, and so there could be sympathy going his way.
There could be sympathy, but
from the public.
Joseph Stalin told us, those who vote,
it doesn't matter about those that vote. Don't matter.
Those who vote decide nothing.
Yes,
those who count the votes decide everything.
Decide everything.
You know, it's probably the same headline as a nation as well.
Yes.
Because I fungued my TV and I saw Matiang'i and the CDF Mwafefe at Nairobi Hospital.
The Chief of Defense Forces.
The moment I saw that, I just knew who has been sidelined. And about a couple of hours later, William Ruto showed up at Annex with just flags next to him, behind him, and talking to cameras. And I was like, wow.
You see, you even sound sorry.
But are we shocked? This is someone who struggled to see the president when he was alive.
So and even in death, he's being denied access.
Yes.
Oh, man, man.
You're feeling very bad.
I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for him.
Well, he's down but not out in this moment.
Yes.
Well, we do have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? Of the two, or shall we do the third one and then decide?
Let's do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's keep the two. Standard has gone a different way for obvious reasons. Mois political stars.
Yes. So this the article talks about the many politicians who were either under Mois' tutelage or under his influence in one way or the other. And as the way the Star puts it, they owe his their political fortunes or even material fortunes to Moi. And they call them Mois political orphans. Orphaned not because he died, but because he from when he left leadership. These are including Raila, Mudavadi, Kalonzo.
Actually, everyone who we're dealing with now on a day-to-day basis politically is on this list.
Is on that list. So they tell us three things. One is that the leader of the Moi orphans is President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
Then the other thing,
who got direct anointing.
And now he's the anointed leader. And then the other thing they say in this in the Standard is that there are those who fell out with Moi after the 1992 elections. Those the Y2K people, Cyrus Jirongo, William Ruto, the current deputy president, and Sam Nyamweya. But the Standard says that even those people cannot win themselves from Moi's political milk, to quote verbatim. And he said they continued to Moi's death to orbit around him because they recognize the influence that he still has politically and that he will have after death. The third thing they tell us is that Jubilee is a rebranded KANU.
Likely, I can see that.
I'm glad you said that because where I was going was this. Is it possible that William Ruto is not a candidate to be that Gideon Mois is going to be.
I had that exact same thought. And I said, will Uhuru pay it forward? The same way he was anointed successor, will he do the same for Gideon? And is Gideon ready to take up
So Mois' funeral will be Gideon's coronation.
There, you had it here first.
Perhaps.
So what do we think of the headlines and who do we give it to?
So how do Kalenjin's crowns look like?
The Daily Nation headline is very attractive. What does the coronation look like? I'm quite intrigued. It made me a crown of thorns.
I like Daily Nation. The power games there, I mean, it's the reality of what we're witnessing firsthand.
I like Daily Nation as well.
And we're likely to see the jostling as well on the day and all that.
Absolutely.
Should we give it to the Daily Nation?
Let's do that.
Yes. Daily Nation gives us our winning headline.
Yeah.
On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
And here you have Ndula and the caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta, the leader of the Nyayo children. And he's doing Kidole Tingiza. Next to him is William Ruto, who is suckling on Maziwa Nyayo. Next to him is Raila Odinga, and he's also Tingizai with a cockerel, next to him. Next is Musalia Mudavadi, Tingizai. And last but not least, the Mr. Wiper himself, Kalonzo Musyoka, and he's also Tingizai. And the caption there is Moi enduring legacy. And also,
you should notice that they all have gaps similar to
Moi.
The late President Moi.
Absolutely.
With the signature Kanutai. Very nice.
Yes.
Why is Ruto drawn so small?
Because he's the youngest of them all.
Of the babies, right? Of the, okay.
Yeah.
Is it? It's because of the headlines that we have just read. That is why he's small.
That's what you're
man. Okay, right. Very nice. So let's look at, okay, so the Standard didn't have a cartoon, so we toss you.
Yes.
But we have the Star.
Yes, you have the Star and this caricature of MZEE Moi in heaven. And next to him are the 14 children who died in Kakamega. And the next to them is St. Peter, who's at the gates of heaven and he's reading the book of life. And right there is Matthew chapter 19 verse 14.
Which says what?
Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these.
Amen. This plays also on the well-known fact that Moi loved children. Or he was known to love children.
Absolutely.
This is a very sweet and hopeful cartoon.
Yes.
And I particularly like it for including the Kakamega children, whose tragedy has really been overshadowed by Moi's passing. I must point out though that it's not biblically factual. Moi is not in heaven, neither is he in hell. He's dead. The Bible says...
Don't scare us.
What are you saying?
The Bible says that we will remain dead until the trumpet sounds on the day of judgment.
Me, I'll go consult my pastor.
So on that day of judgment, the people who are condemning Moi now may see him on the line entering the heaven's gates.
And you know, that's precisely why I like this cartoon, because you see some fellows on Twitter, you know, going all in at Moi, judging the man is probably in heaven, will probably go to heaven. And, you know, let judgment be for God. He's already done his thing, he's died. I think it's time to show some respect.
Yeah, but what I also think about this outrage towards people who, you know, say condone with the family or say rest in peace Moi, who appointed people thought police? Because people have different perspectives and experiences even during Moi's tenure.
Everybody's reality was different.
So people should be unapologetic about what they think and express themselves freely.
Don't tell people, why are you saying that Moi was more
or don't bad, feel like that.
Good. Don't feel. You're nobody. Just let people think whatever they want to think. If you want to think like that, go think like that. Me, I'll think the way I want to think.
Well, there you have it. Do we give this the winning cartoon?
I think
for its thoughtfulness?
Yes.
There we have it. The Star by Ozone gives us our winning cartoon.
Absolutely.
Now, what is our final thought?
And today is a sad final thought, my people. But before I say it, let me read it out. And now our final thought. It is a book entitled, or inspired by a book entitled, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander.
Now, Michelle Alexander is a Black American writer, civil rights advocate, and a professor at a theological seminary. Nice. Interesting, huh? So perhaps before I give the summary of the book, I should give an explanation of what Jim Crow is. So the name Jim Crow originated from a fictional character, which was a caricature of a clumsy black slave, and a dim-witted one at that. But in this book, Jim Crow in this book refers to a set of laws that were in place in the American South from the 1890s to the mid-60s, in the time of the civil rights movement. So the laws affected almost every aspect of daily life for the black people. It was mandating segregations in schools and other public spaces like libraries, buses, etc. So during that time, you would walk around and there, for whites only, for blacks only, it was an apartheid system in effect. So there was even a specific set of laws, of Jim Crow laws, that were designed to lock out black men from voting. And I say black men because at that time there was universal manhood suffrage, not universal suffrage. So which means that all men legally could vote, regardless of their race, their income, or their property. But then, so these laws were instituted so that it would sideline black men from voting. It locked them out through technicalities and legal maneuvering, including payment of poll tax, which of course a lot of black people could not afford. Literally tests, so you take a test before you register or even before you vote. And complicated registration systems. They even had a grandfather clause in the laws, which stated that if your grandfather or your ancestors were able to vote before the Civil War in America, then you can vote and you don't have to take the test. So that allowed a lot of white illiterate people to vote and not have to take the test. So this book tells us, fast forward to the present day, and Jim Crow laws are alive and well, only that it's a new kind of social form of control that is happening currently. And this is mass incarceration of blacks in America and the repression of black America through legal institutions. So the book says that the systemic discrimination dates back to 1982 during Ronald Reagan's administration, when he declared a war on drugs and pronounced illicit drugs a threat to US national security. So this resulted in millions of African Americans being sent in jail because of petty drug crimes and because the system was racially profiling them. So it was very deliberate. So in fact, the incarceration rate of black American people in the US today is higher than it was in South Africa during the apartheid era. So if you are young and black in Washington, D.C., for instance, there's a 3 in 4 chance that you'll end up in prison at some point in your life. Yet, research indicates that it is actually white people who form the majority of drug users and drug dealers. So it looks like every time African Americans have a win in their history, for instance, slavery is abolished, then it is replaced by Jim Crow laws. Then comes the civil rights movement, and then you conquer the Jim Crow laws. Then a few years later comes the war on drugs, which is, and the effects of it are happening to
even
date.
Up to now.
So it is always a luta continua for our black brothers and sisters in the USA.
And their subjugation. My takeaway from this book, guys, was chapter 2, and she calls it the lockdown. And I want to proceed from where you've left, the war on drugs. And you know, the war on drugs was actually packaged as the war on the producers. You know, Colombia was a big producer of crack cocaine. There was heroin coming from Vietnam. And that's what everybody thought Reagan was going for. But in essence, they were actually going for the blacks. The blacks to incarcerate them. You know, 2/3 of all federal inmates between 1985 to the year 2000, about 31 million, were actually black people.
31 million.
31 million. Now, and they were not even jailed for the class A drugs. They were actually jailed for using marijuana or peddling them.
Things that have been made legal now.
Reagan was probably smoking himself.
Reagan and probably his kids were smoking that kind of stuff. But my second thing from this was also the militarization of the police. And that's when they came up with this thing called SWAT teams. You know, we see SWAT and we think they're just a deterrent. Nope. They were actually formed to come and raid houses and look for assets. Now, when they did that, there was a law that actually allowed the police to keep the cash and the assets that they found, and they were actually incentivized. Now, a white guy who would, a white middle class guy, would probably afford to talk to the police and negotiate a way out and get back his money or a slice of his money.
Which always happened.
Yes.
Almost always.
Precisely. The poor guys, who are probably almost black people, would actually not contest the seizure. Now, these seizures were actually called, in law, they were called forfeitures. Now, the law then was that a person is not entitled to an attorney if in forfeiture cases. Now, that meant that if you were under legal aid or could not afford an attorney, then whatever was seized from your house, you could not contest it. What actually happened, guys, there were 80% of goods and assets and cash that were seized were not contested. And majority of that were actually owned by black people.
Black people. Hey, what a time. It's crazy. So in chapter 4, she speaks about the cruel hand. So you've been in the system, which is what you've just described. Once you get out of jail, life is not any better. Right? And so she says that a criminal record for black Americans, even till today, authorizes the same discrimination that you were saying, the Jim Crow laws. But there was discrimination in employment right now, housing, education, public benefits, and jury service, and even the right to vote. So what she says is that people who left prison or leaving prison experience this civic death because they're not able to exercise their civic duties, which is supposed to be the lifeline of any modern democracy. And so you can't vote, and then beyond that, you don't, jury duty, not a lot of people probably want to go for it anyway, but it should be your right to do it. But you're also ineligible for healthcare. Food stamps, driver's license can be suspended in some states. And these civic penalties really affect your life thereafter.
That's why she calls it a death.
A death, right? Now the problem is, you're expected to find work. Work actually is your basic human right. It's what helps you add value to society. It's what gives you independence. But what happens is, in America, the failure to find work after your prison sentence can gain you even more prison time. But there's a double whammy there. Because nearly every state in America allows private employers to discriminate on the basis of past criminal convictions. So if you've been convicted and you have to check a box during your interview that says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Have you ever been arrested? Because you can be arrested, but you're not convicted. Yet that arrest tick can also work against you when you're looking for a job. So this is also something that this is a cruel hand that she's talking about. You've finally done your time, and society finds ways to continually exclude you, socially and economically. So you can't find a place to live because you're not eligible for housing benefits. You're likely not to find a job. And if you should find a job, she talks of this thing called state-sponsored stratification. Basically, this negative credential that you've been given as a felon works against you because once you find the job, you have to pay the state certain fees. There's probation fees. If you were paying child support, those things have to be taken away. So if you're lucky enough to find that job, your money get that money. They're eligible to take up to 65%, and in some cases 100% of your paycheck goes to these institutions.
Doesn't that just lead you back to crime?
Leads you back to unemployment again and crime and back to jail.
The cycle continues.
And most of these prisoners, about 70% are illiterate and are high school dropouts. So they don't possess these high skills.
It's good we're talking about this now, but it also reflects much on our society. You see, prisoners are allowed to do KCPE, KCSE, but once they come out, they become, they are outcasts. Nobody can employ
Certificate
them.
of good conduct.
Exactly.
You can't get it. You're done. Maybe it is time, and there's a reason maybe we do final thought here, is probably to help society. Now, this thing we call Big Four is the president's thing. I don't understand it much, but it's his thing. Why not? Well, let's not come with a scheme of saying that half of the goods that will come out, let's say in textiles, will be done by prisoners who will earn an amount, a wage, every week or something
or
like that.
After they've come from prison.
After they've come from prison. That money can go to their families or they can collect it after their term. maybe it's a way to start even seeing our societies and using it.
A reintegration and a rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
There you go. So on a day where we had a winning cartoon from the Star and a winning headline from the Daily Nation, I want to leave you with this. The American prison system generates about $74 billion a year.
Right.
And is funded by both
That's Kenya's GDP.
the government and tax system, taxpayers.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be surprised that there's less rehabilitation of prisoners, because this is a business. It's here to generate
It's a
revenue.
capitalistic scheme.
Yeah, so stay woke, people of America. But also even in Kenya, let's figure out ways in which maybe there's discrimination happening less overtly to people trying to reintegrate into society.
I agree.
So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but find us on TV. We're on Pan Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Have a good evening.